All right. What happens when you're munching on a big cheeseburger? Well, I'm sure lots of things happening when you're munching on a big cheeseburger, but what actually is happening in your body when you're munching on a big cheeseburger? So right now we're going to talk about the digestive system. What actually is going on in your body as you're processing that food, okay? A nice big cheeseburger, I picked on that one because the cheeseburger has several different components to it. It's got proteins, you've got your carbohydrates in the form of some of your vegetables, the bun that's on it. You've got some dairy, some fat in the form of the cheese. So you've got all these good different things, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. We've got all of them in that cheeseburger. So today we're going to munch on a cheeseburger. All right. You can pick whatever cheeseburger you want. You can go to Whataburger. You can go to Jack's. Pick the burger you want. But we're going to have a cheeseburger. Here we go. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you'll have to figure out some other way to do your cheeseburger. But find something that works for you, and that's okay with me. All right. So here we go. So when you take your bite of cheeseburger, digestion begins in the mouth. It's your first of your digestive organs. It's your mouth. Digestion begins in the mouth. What do I mean by that? I mean, there's there's two things that have to happen for digestion to occur. You have to have mechanical digestion. You have to have chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is basically what you learned in physical science, which is that you're looking at a change in size and shape alone, okay? It's a physical change, a mechanical change, right? So mechanical digestion or physical digestion is you're simply taking the big cheeseburger and you're turning it into small mushy pieces of cheeseburger. You're taking the big pieces and making them into small pieces. This is important because when it gets into your stomach and your digestive system, the smaller the parts, the more surface area you're exposing to your digestive system. That allows you to be more efficient in extracting the vitamins, minerals, proteins, sugars, fats, all the things that you need to grow, to play, to work, to live, to breathe, to all that stuff. So you have to have those things. And the easiest way to get them is to make sure that your food is in the smallest possible pieces it can be before you swallow it. This is why mom's always telling you, you need to chew your food. Okay, moms, I'm sorry, I know you really don't sound like that, but you need to chew your food. You gotta chew your food. It's really important, and that's why, okay? It's not just your mom telling you to do that because you're supposed to do that and she's setting up rules, okay? And I know with some things like macaroni and cheese, it's almost impossible to chew your food. This stuff just slides down. It's like it's trying to get to your stomach. I'm gonna go first. No, I'm gonna go first. The little noodles are racing. It's just crazy. But most of the time, you gotta chew your food, okay? Yogurt, you can't chew yogurt. There's several food. Never mind, I'm getting distracted. You got to chew your food. Make it as small as possible pieces, okay? Now, not only is the physical digestion going on in your mouth, because you're breaking the food down from big pieces to small pieces, but there's also some chemical digestion that's going on as well. You have glands in your mouth that produce what is called amylase. Amylase is an enzyme that breaks down starches, complex sugars into simple sugars. Simple sugars taste sweet. Complex starches taste like paste. Isn't that awesome? It's like eating paper. Okay, but if you take a saltine cracker or maybe a handful of oyster crackers, whatever you prefer, you can throw them in your mouth and begin to chew them. If you chew them long enough, you will notice that the cracker will begin to taste sweet, which is really, really awesome. It's awesome because that sweet flavor is produced as the complex starches break down into simple sugars. Your body, your tongue can taste those simple sugars as it goes down. But this is an example of chemical digestion. The chemical digestion of the amylase in your mouth, that is a part where we begin to attack the starches and the sugars. The carbohydrates begin to be digested in the mouth. So we're going to take those carbohydrates and all those small pieces of food from our mechanical digestion, and we're going to swallow them down. When that food leaves our mouth, the food goes into our esophagus. The esophagus is the food tube. It's about 8 inches long. It goes from about here to about here. and that carries the food through a muscular contraction called peristalsis. It carries the food down and pushes it into the stomach. Yes, I said muscular contraction. That means that gravity is not really helping you to swallow your food. You can stand on your head and still swallow. Don't believe me? Try it. Just not at a restaurant in public, because your parents would really hate me. So don't do that. So when you swallow the food gets into your esophagus. Literally, your esophagus will contract and squeeze the food down, and then contract here and squeeze the food down, and contract here and squeeze the food down. And it will continue to do that rhythmic contraction, pushing the food down into your stomach. And that's the way that it works. It is peristalsis that indeed carries the food, once it's in the esophagus, all the way through your alimentary canal, which is all of your digestive system, carries it all the way through until it passes out at the end. Okay? So it is peristalsis that controls all of those actions. You've experienced, by the way, reverse peristalsis. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so once that food gets down into your stomach, by the way, watch the respiratory video and find out the flap, the epiglottis. I discussed it there, that prevents food from getting into your trachea, which would take it to the lungs and ruin your day. So you can watch the respiratory video and learn about how that little neat thing works. So once the food gets down in your stomach, right, your stomach begins this series of contractions, moving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it is mixing all that yummy chewed up food with enzymes and water and acid and all kinds of things. It is mixing it back and forth, grinding it up, mushing it up, blending it together into a substance that we call chyme. Chyme comes from the Greek word for juice. And you have experienced chyme during those periods of reverse peristalsis that I just mentioned. Okay, all right, so that's chyme. By the way, the reason your stomach growls, everyone always, why does your stomach growl? Your stomach growls because when you have no food in there, but your body is anticipating food, your stomach, like any good muscles, beginning its warm-ups. So it goes through a rhythmic contraction to kind of get itself loose, get ready for the food that's going to come. And as it's doing that, it is squirting all of that water and those enzymes and the acid. It is squirting them from one side of the stomach to the other, making that yummy growling noise that we hear when your stomach growls. That's what's going on. So once the food gets down in your stomach, primarily the enzymes involved in the stomach are going to be attacking the proteins. Remember, carbohydrate digestion started here. In your stomach is where we really kick into gear with the protein digestion, breaking down the proteins. Now, once all that is thoroughly mixed, that will begin to leak out of the bottom of the stomach, all right, through a little valve. It will leak out and get into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. The duodenum is important because it is there that the liver and the pancreas and the gallbladder are all going to work together as accessory digestive organs. They're going to work together to pump in bile to help to emulsify the fats. We're going to begin fat digestion here. It also helps to neutralize the acid because we don't want to dissolve our small intestine. Our stomach is lined with a coating that prevents it from dissolving with acid. Small intestine doesn't have that. Esophagus doesn't have that. That's why it burns during periods of reverse peristalsis. Okay? So, all that's going on in the duodenum. Very important part of your small intestine, that first part, where we're going to neutralize those acids. We're going to neutralize some of the other things. We're going to begin to digest fats. Now, digestion is different from absorption. Digestion is the breakdown of these materials. So the breakdown of carbohydrates, the breakdown of proteins, and then the duodenum, the breakdown of lipids or fats. All that is going on in those areas. Once we then move into the proper part of the small intestine, okay, we're now going to deal with the absorption of nutrients. We're going to try to get all of the the vitamins, the proteins, the sugars, fats, the minerals, all the things that you need to live, grow, breathe, sleep, play, work, whatever it is you're going to do. You have to get all that into your body, and that's all going to get picked up and absorbed through the small intestine. Your small intestine does this through these little finger-like projections. So imagine a tube, and inside of that tube, you've got these finger-like projections that stick down. And from those finger-like projections, you have smaller micro finger-like projections that all increase the surface area inside of that small intestine. So that as the food is now pushing through that, all broken down and in small pieces, we can expose it to tons and tons of surface area that allow all that absorption of nutrients to get passed through, get into the bloodstream, so that your blood, your circulatory system, can then deliver all that good stuff to your cells. All of that is going on through your small intestine. Once at the bottom of your small intestine, bottom right, down here, it then hits the large intestine, also known as the colon. Colon is your large intestine. It is in the colon, you have three sections of your colon. You have the ascending colon, you have the transverse colon, and you have the descending colon that terminates in the structure called the rectum, which is the storage area for the stuff that you haven't digested, that you can then at an appropriate time and place deposit it safely. Yes, so that's all going on. So you have the ascending colon. All right, it is in the colon. We're going to absorb a few extra things. We're primarily going to remove as much water as we can. Remember, we dumped all that water back into the colon, or back into the food, so that we could get it all soupy and digesty, and we can pull things out of it. Now we want to remove that water because we don't want to dehydrate, right? That would be really, really bad. You see, when your colon stops removing water, all that stuff just whooshes right through you. Whoosh, whoosh. Yeah, you don't, whooshing is bad. That's not how you want to whoosh. Now, if your colon is too efficient and removes too much water, things kind of grind to a halt. And yeah, they don't want to move. That's also bad. So you want to stay what we call regular. Regular is your friend. So, right, all that's happening as you're moving through the digestive system, removing the water back out. The other cool thing that's happening in your colon is you actually have a wonderful, wonderful little friend called E. coli, Escherichia coli. The E. coli bacteria lives in your colon. That's why it's called coli. That's where it's supposed to be. And as it is feeding on all of your waste material moving through, it is producing a waste material called vitamin K. Vitamin K is essential to blood clotting. So you are absorbing vitamin K through your colon, giving it to your blood so that your blood has the components that it needs for the proper clotting of blood. Because remember, we don't want blood to clot everywhere, and we don't want it not to clot. We want it to clot only where you're cut, and only then. Then that's a good thing. So you have all that vitamin K, it's going to help you. And that you're getting from the E. coli bacteria. So that, in a nutshell, is your digestive system. It is a tube that goes through your body. Food actually does not enter your body. Say that again. Food does not actually enter your body. It passes through the alimentary canal, which is like a tunnel that goes through your body. Okay? Just like if you are driving in a road and you're going through the mountains and you go into a tunnel, you are not in the mountain. You are in the tunnel. If you walk over there to Rickwood Caverns or go down to DeSoto Caverns, you are not in the mountain. You're in the cave that's in the mountain. Okay? That's why Jesus can say it's not what goes into a man that makes him unclean, because that goes into a man and just passes out. It's what comes out of a man, because that comes from his heart. Okay? So food that goes into you is just passing through the tunnel. We're absorbing things and putting those things into our body. The rest of it just passes through like you driving through a tunnel in a mountain. So digestion begins in the mouth, where we have Physical and chemical digestion, the breakdown of carbohydrates begins here. Swallow through the trachea, or through the, don't swallow through the trachea. You swallow through the esophagus. The esophagus takes the food through peristaltic motion down into the stomach. That's where we have protein digestion, as it's mixing with acids and enzymes and a lot of water. That then gets released into the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum, where we begin the emulsification digestion of fats. It then moves into the small intestine, where we absorb, the primary place of absorption of nutrients. We then come into the colon, where we're going to absorb water and the residual vitamin K from the E. coli bacteria that are releasing that as they're feeding on our waste products. That then gets stored. The remains of that all get stored in the rectum for proper time for disposal. And that, my friends, is the digestive system.